You're watching a segment of The Splash, Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show.
Bringing members of the community into our studio for good conversation is one of our favorite parts of making this show every week. Let's take a moment now to enjoy some of the most memorable and impactful interviews from our first 100 episodes.
Growing up, I was a soccer player, and all my buddies were football players. And so they were like, hey, you need to come play some football if you're tough. And so, but I was kicking in soccer, knew how to do that. So I dabbled in other positions, but kicking was what I was best at. So I did that, went to Washington State University, and then was drafted by Detroit.
And it's obvious, kicking is what you're best at. In your time with the Lions, you were not, like I mentioned, the highest scoring player on the team. But I mean, most field goals of 40 or more yards, most consecutive field goals of 40 or more yards. I mean, most career game winning field goals in overtime. You're tied with a couple other players, but you've become the first player in NFL history to score 2,000 points with one franchise. I mean, do you ever just look back on it and say, wow, I did all that? Or, is it just, does it ever shock you?
Well, I mean, yeah, because when I was playing soccer and starting in football, I had no idea that I was ever going to play that long for an NFL team. And so, you kind of look back with amazement. I just feel blessed to be able to do that. I came into the league, and you would see guys who had played for 5-6 years, and those were the old guys. How do you play that long? And then, after you play a decade, then you play another decade. And so it was a great ride. It was a lot of fun to play for Detroit.
The great thing is you're here today, and you're sharing your story, like you said. You have written books on it, and
And the reason I am sharing my story, not just here, but I hope we have a chance to talk about it. I speak all over, not just Michigan, but in other states too. I used my Holocaust experiences to promote tolerance and acceptance of diversity, because my life story is not just the darkest chapter of human history, but an example of what happened when a nation did not accept diversity, and what can happen unless we learn from it.
And a story that occurred right here in West Bloomfield was a little second grade girl, and she was in class, and they were doing this lesson. I used to think, and now I know. And so the teacher was verbally taking the boys and girls through that exercise. And a little boy said, I used to think that spiders were insects, and now I know that they're arachnids. And another little girl said, well, I used to not understand why I needed a comma or a period at the end of a sentence, and now I understand why I need to have that before I start my next sentence. And a little girl turned to her teacher and said, I used to think I'd go home on the weekend and be hungry, but now I know there'll be a bag of food in my locker on Fridays. At which point the teacher had to stop the lesson because she was in tears.
That's beautiful, absolutely.
It's very telling. And we really have no understanding, even though we think we do, of what it is to worry about where your next meal is coming from when you're 7 years old.
Current piece, I'm learning to make beveled pieces. So this is not thrown, this is constructed from slab. But one of the interesting things is these markings on the side that you can see are my fingerprints from when I hold it and dip it in the glaze. There, it feels like this. So I'll dip it in the glaze, and it creates those little marks from where my fingers are. So the mark of the hand of the potter is actually part of the glaze. And people can use them as pedestals for other things, but in general, most people just use them as art objects themselves. And in fact, I have little 2-inch cubes that people use like worry stones, and I can't make enough of them.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's
Great.
fun.
So you would probably definitely recommend that people who are looking for a life career transition give art a try. It's definitely been fulfilling for you.
It's completely, it's re-energizing and really charges me up and gets me involved in the whole pottery community, which is quite large in Michigan. The Ceramics Association is the feeder into NCECA, which is their national chapter, which has about 10,000 potters meet every year. It's remarkable.
You brought the medal in today was how heavy it is.
Yep.
Like, it is massive.
Yeah, it's insane.
And you have to wear that thing around your neck sometimes, right? For photo ops and things?
Yeah, I do. I don't bring it out as much as most people would.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, it's way heavier. I definitely gained a couple new neck muscles, I'd have to say. But it's super cool. I mean, whenever I bring it out, people get so stoked, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so crazy."
Well, I mean, it's a lifetime of effort to get there for sure. Now, you are back in the area, at least for a little while, before you go on and do more of your snowboarding career. Tell us what the reception has been like here in West Bloomfield and in Metro Detroit.
I mean, it's insane to come home and actually have people like recognize you and be like, you know, congratulations and stuff. And it's so cool. You know, everyone around here has been so supportive of me, from like all my teachers back in grade school to like my parents, like especially my parents. Like, they've done so much for me in my life that it's just so cool to come home and, you know, have all this hype around me and like all these people that want to come out and like, you know, say hi. I got like all my friends, little nephews and cousins, you know. Whenever I go hang out with them, like, oh, hold on, like, let me FaceTime my cousin real quick. They won't believe I'm with you right now. And like all these cool things. So it's just like, it really blows me away and makes me so happy that, like, you know, that I've actually like motivated and kind of influenced kids to get into snowboarding. And
people realize just the severity of this situation. And since then, you have been all across the world, you know, promoting and letting people know of how important this is. So, I mean, that's commendable, and, you know, it's a lot of hard work, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, we haven't been hearing much about the Flint water crisis recently. So obviously the media's died down, and people think the problem's fixed, but it's not fixed. We are in our 3rd year in Flint where we cannot drink this water. So my kids in clinic, they turn on the tap and they cannot drink that water without a filter or using alternatives like bottled water. So we are very much still in the middle of this crisis. And, you know, Congress in DC has given $0 to Flint. So we have also, so I keep talking, and I will continue talking to everybody, because we have yet to really garner that support for our long-term recovery. Unlike a flood or a hurricane or another natural disaster, this is something we just can't clean up from. This is something that we may have to deal with for decades or generations. So we really need to keep talking about Flint so we can garner those resources to make sure our children not only recover but really thrive after this disaster.
Thank you again for being here, and thank you for doing all your hard work as well. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Oh, once again, everybody, Dr. Mona, thank you for joining me today. But also, we just want to say, continue to look out for the Flint water crisis and help these people in Flint, because they still need the support and they still need this attention and all of our help. So please, everyone, continue to support them and keep them in your prayers.
You can watch the full interviews of these and other guests anytime and anywhere by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com.
Thanks for watching a segment of The Splash. To catch the entire show or other segments, watch us on Comcast Channel 15 or AT&T Channel 99. Or look us up online at thesplash.tv and listen to us on WBLD 89.3, the all-new Lakes FM.